Nah, not me, man. There is no best in the world, man. Yeah, there is no best in the world. Wow, that thing's huge. Um, yeah, there's just generations, you know, and even the ones that you know about. For every one famous drummer, there's like 100 unknown drummers that are just as good or better. You know. I mean, Dave worked for Nirvana. You know, he's. I'm the wrong person to ask. Dave is not a drummer's drummer. He's not a drummer that drummers study to. He's like a drummer that novices kind of learn. You know, but yeah, he's not a drummer's drummer. You know, that doesn't mean he's not good. You know, he's pretty decent. You know, he was good for like there's a you know there's 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 artists there are groups that are the sum are better than their parts. Like it wouldn't have worked with any other drummer. Just like it wouldn't have Nirvana wouldn't have worked without um um Chris Novoselic on bass. It definitely wouldn't have worked without Kurt on guitar and vocals and lyrics and all. It just wouldn't have worked. You know. They had another drummer. And for a while, Matt Cameron, as good as Matt Cameron is, he was playing drums with them. But something happened and he left or whatever. Um, so it's a matter of the sum is better than, the sum is better than the parts. The situation is, yeah, the sum is better than its parts. You know, um, Dave worked for Nirvana. You know, um, so but like I said, like for me, and that this is no slight against him, but for me, he's not a guy that I would like sit and like let me learn his licks, like it. So you know, yeah, anybody. If you want to play guitar, are you gonna learn from Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix or you know? It's it's like Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton versus George Harrison. Ain't nobody checking. Like, why would they want to learn George Harrison? Okay, I'll just take Eddie Van Halen out of it. Why would they want to learn? The reason why I say that is because it's different eras. Why would they want to learn George Harrison when they got Clapton and they got Hendrix? It doesn't make sense. Now did he work for the Beatles? Yeah, of course. Did John Lennon work for the Beatles? Yeah, of course. But are you gonna go learning John Lennon licks on guitar? He just played ding 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 ding, rhythm guitar, and George barely played lead. So you know, um, so even like for me, like I didn't learn when I started playing drums. I learned like I started off with like Neil Peart and like John Bonham, guys like that. I wasn't learning like Peter Criss or whoever. I was learning guys who actually, you know, yeah, I wasn't learning the poppy stuff, you know, or just like regular, regular guys, you know what I mean? Regular nondescript guys. I was learning guys like Neil Peart, who was known for being a good drummer, or John Bonham, who was a legend. He was, known for. And Bonham was actually a really, really good drummer. You know, sure he played what was appropriate for Zeppelin, but in and of himself, he was a great drummer. You know, I met Stevie Ray Vaughan one time. This was in the 80s, like a year before he died. He was in Red Bank, New Jersey. He was parked. Oh, there was a store in Red Bank called Red Bank Music. And he was parked, like if you're walking down the street, you walk into the front, had a big picture window, 2 floors. You could go into the front, but in the back, it had like a U-shaped parking lot, and you could just kind of pull in. And I saw a Nissan. I don't even think. Yeah, it was Nissan 280ZX. It was red and white, and I saw a red and white cowboy hat with some red and white cowboy boots and some black jeans. And I looked over, and the door was open. The boots were like, you saw the hat. It had like a T-top where you could take and the top was off, so it was pretty hot. It was summertime, and you could see the hat through the. You could see the hat through the rear window, and the door was open, and the red and white. It was like red and white snakeskin cowboy boots. His one leg, the left leg, was out on the ground, and I was walking over, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's hat, his hat and his boots matches his car." And then I looked over, and it's a dude. I just saw a hand smoking a cigarette. And I was like, Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I think he was shocked because he's kind of like, hey, how's it going? And I shook his hand. I didn't want to be like, oh my God, dude. But I think he was shocked because it was like, wow, a black dude knows who I am. I was like, yo, Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's like, hey, how's it going, man? I was like, oh, snap. And then I think I got, because it also sold vinyl. And I bought like a bunch of Allen Hallsworth vinyl. And I'm talking to the cashier. I'm like, hey, man, you know Stevie Ray Vaughan's out there in the parking lot? He goes, yeah, he comes here all the time when he tours. And just as I'm saying that, just as the guy's saying that, Stevie he comes in from the back door. I'm like, oh, snap. So, I mean, as far as I knew, he's pretty cool. I didn't fan out on him because I was just kind of like, well, I've always kind of been like, you know, yeah, people might be famous, but they're human. You know, he don't know me from a can of spray paint, so I'm not gonna be like, bro, like he don't know me. You know, so, but yeah, man. Yeah, but you gotta consider this, man. If you were black, you were listening to like hip hop. You were listening to rap music, man. You know what I mean? Um, you weren't really listening to rock. There were a few of us that listened to rock. Um, this was like back then, bro. I was um I was into like a lot of punk, and I had like black fingernail polish. I had a green mohawk. I used to wear a black dress with black Doc Martens and black like the women's like stockings with the line. I was like really hardcore punk, really hardcore punk. You know. Um, so yeah. Not here, bro. This is America. America's kind of racist, bro. You know, you know. There was a point in time, and that's not just like, oh, the white people are racist against black people. White people are racist against black people. Black people are racist against white people. Latinos don't like black. Like it's just racism on every side, bro. On every side. And if you're like a if like if you were like a white dude who like rap music, like their white friends and family would kind of like look at them crazy. If you were a black dude that like rock music, your black family and friends would look at you crazy. Like that's America, man. America's very, and like I said, it's not contained to one race. Black people are racist, white people are racist, Latinos are racist, Asians are racist. Racism is like it's baked into America. You know what I mean? It just is. It's baked into America. So if you go against what racially, um, if you go against whatever stereotype that you're supposed to be part of, you don't you don't it just don't like it just don't work for you. I found that I've gotten more acceptance from white people being, a dude who knows rock and roll and loves rock and roll than I have from. It's different now. It's like no big deal now, but when I came up, it was completely different. You know, like a white dude who liked hip hop, he got more acceptance from black people than he got from white people. A black dude that liked rock, he got more acceptance from white people than he did from black people. That's just how it is. That's how it was, man. You know what I mean? Nowadays, it's kind of like everybody likes everything, so it's a little different. But when I came up, it was completely different. It was different. You know, it was just different. You know, people, yeah, like racism and tribalism is baked into American culture, and it's not. I can't stress this enough. It's not just one race. Everybody here is they've got some kind of racial weird kind of thing going on that like it's a weird tribalism, man. You know what I mean? That's why I always tell people if everybody was gray, there'd be like in America there'd be the talls versus the shorts, or the fats versus the skinnies, or the curly hairs versus the straight hair, or the brown eyes versus the blue eyes versus the green eyes. You know what I mean? Like American, it's why because it's just American culture. It's our culture. Like I love America, but that's one of the downsides of it. It was just, racism is so baked into it. Even the politics, man. That's why I don't, I just don't get into that like the politics and stuff because it's just, it's all like whether you're on one side or the other, there's a little racism baked in, you know. Yeah, Jimmy was Stevie's biggest influence, but Jimmy had to go to England to get accepted. He had to go to England, bro. And he was going to England because him playing rock and roll, it just didn't fit. Like he used to play on the Black Chitlin circuit. They called it the Chitlin circuit. He got kicked out of so many bands because he he was a rock and roll guitarist playing R&B and playing black music. He was a rock and roll guy. Like he played with like Little Richard. Little Richard kicked him out the band. Because he was so rock and roll, you know. So I mean, just it's racism, bro. It's baked into American culture, man. And again, it's not one race or the other. It's everybody, you know. Everybody can be racist, bro. Everybody. Everybody, bro. You know, that's why like I believe this, bro. Like racism is a human. It's another excuse for tribalism. You know, um, like for instance, I'm the color I am because my ancestors come from Africa. What makes me dark is called melanin. Melanin is the human physiological response to a bunch of sunlight. If you take people and you put them in a very hot place where there's a lot of sunlight, their skin is going to develop some kind of natural sunscreen. And that's what this dark stuff, this melanin, this pigment, it protects like people of African descent are far less likely to get sunburn or skin cancer or what have you than white people or people with no pigment. But at the same time, white people they never really suffer from vitamin D deficiency. Why? Because most of the vitamin D humans get is from sunlight. Black people, on the other hand, if you take us out of Africa and put us anywhere else besides our natural habitat, Africa, we end up with that vitamin D deficiency. That's where you get mental issues, you get high rates of depression, you get, you know what I mean? You get all kinds of stuff. Um, like that's why, like, if you're black, like my wife, she just found out she's vitamin D deficient. Why? Because she's not in the sun. She don't go out in the sun that much. You know what I mean? And it's a common thing, you know. And the reason why we tend to be more vitamin D deficient is because we're not in Africa. We're not in our natural habitat. So, you know, even our hair is kinky to expel heat. You don't need a lot of hair when it's hot. You know, Africans aren't naturally hairy. Why? Because it's hot. Hair makes you hot. You know what I mean? Whereas you go to Europe, white people tend to be more hairy. Why? Because Europe is cold. And you can layer like white people you can layer your hair. Why? Because one of the most important things on the human body is the brain. You gotta protect the brain. You know what I mean? Like as opposed to if you got a bunch of hair on your head, you need and it's hot. You're in a hot area. Either you're gonna shave your head bald, or like Africans, their hair is kinky. It's coils. The coils are meant to like expel heat from the head, from the head, so you don't get like heat strokes. All this stuff you could Google this stuff, man. You know what I mean? You could Google all this stuff. You know, so it has nothing to do with superior versus inferior. It's simple human adaptation. That's it. But in order to justify, I feel I'm better than you, people make up these cockamamie, theories about, at first they believe that, the shape of your head meant something, and then they realize, oh, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? But people wrote books on that stuff back in the day. I can't remember the name of it, but, like humans just adapt. You know what I mean? If you look at Asians, Northern Asians, tend to be lighter. Why? Because Northern Asia, like China and what have you, and Korea, they're lighter. The further south you go, like Southeast Asia, and the hotter it is, the darker the Asians get. If you go to Europe, the further north you go, the white people there are lighter. The further south you go to like Italy, they start getting more olive complected. You know what I mean? Why? Because Italy is hotter than northern, you know what I mean? So it's human adaptation, bro. That's all it is, human adaptation. But what humans do for survival is we've developed the defense of tribalism. You know, you don't look like me, so you must be evil. We fear what we can't understand. So we attack it and we try to stamp it out. And that's not just white people or black people or Asian people or Latinos. That's everybody. That's every race. That's the human condition. even if you look at, you know, people always, oh, black people have rhythm. No, they don't. Black people don't have rhythm. It's not inherent. It's all about who was raised in a culture of dance and music. You got white people in America that can, I know some white dudes that can outdance the most dancing black dude. And they got rhythm. And they, you know what I mean? Why? Because they grew up in a culture of music and a culture of dance. It's about your culture. It's about what you've been exposed to. It's not about what's inherent, you know? As a matter of fact, rhythm isn't natural to me. The running joke in my house growing up was the only reason why Mark is good on drums is because he's always practicing and he's always practicing to a metronome. He's always playing drums because he can't dance. He doesn't have rhythm. He can barely clap on beat. He can barely chew gum and walk at the same time. That's rhythm doesn't come natural to me. Naturally, I'm a guitarist. You know, I like melodies and stuff like that, but rhythm, it doesn't come naturally to me. So I work on it. And I have to always work with a metronome because my timing is like horrible. I have horrible timing, you know. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love this song. Ba 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 bum 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 bum. Ugh. That burp stink. It stunk. Ugh. Ugh. Yuck. Okay. Wait. Ah, really? Whiplash? No, it's not. Caravan isn't hard. I have a couple sub kicks that I made, man. From South Carolina, okay. Yeah, the thing about the movie Whiplash, it's it's really the emotional I mean the playing is kind of like, whatever, man. It's like the point of the movie isn't the actual what the guy's trying to learn how to play. It really isn't. That stuff's simple. It's really simple. Um, it's the journey of the musician, your personal journey. Now that is real. Like the torture, the self torture that you go through as an artist. That's very real. I've been there, you know, and it is. It's kind of like it's torture, you know, like the things you put yourself through, you know, for not necessarily perfection. The thing is, you realize at the end of the day that there is no perfection. There's a thing that has to happen in your brain where you have to realize like you gotta give yourself a break. Like I've done the thing where I've played until my hands calloused, and then I kept playing until the skin I started getting like blisters with the fluid under them, and then I would just like take a pin and pop them and let the fluid drain, and I would take scissors and cut it off, cut the skin off, and then I would put band-aids on them, and I'd tape my hands, and I'd still be playing, you know, and then they would start bleeding. Like I've done that stuff, you know, or I'd be practicing guitar, and I would turn on the stove, and I would like let the stove get really, really, really hot, and then I'd turn it off and just touch the like the metal grates. So the tips of my fingers would just like callus up really hard. Like I've done it all, man. I used to crazy glue like the sticks to my hands, and I've done it all, man. Where my hands would be swollen, my wrists would be hurting, my knees would be hurting, my calves would be burning. I've done it all, man. Um, and then you get to a certain point where like I don't have any calluses. Um, that's when you really learn how to play when you just don't have calluses because it just becomes natural, becomes a natural flow. I haven't had calluses in decades, but like there's a certain amount of like single-minded focus and torture that you put yourself through. You know, until you get to a point where you're at the place where you could pretty much play whatever your brain kind of conjures up. So I think I'm pretty much there. Um, like I'm at a place now where I there really isn't much I can't play. It's just I could sit and listen to it and be like, okay, give me like a day, and I could just vomit it out. So like the only if I can't play it, it's because I don't know the sticking patterns. It's not because I don't have the ability. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of learning the sticking patterns, and even now, like I don't listen, I don't sit and chart out songs. I just listen to them. I've played for so long and played so much that I don't have to sit and really practice. I'll just ride around and just listen to the music in my headphones and just internalize it, and I can play it. You know, so you know, but that takes years, man, and it takes a lot of what that guy in the movie, what he went through, a lot of the torture, and you know, um, a lot of the self, you know, deprivation. Like you have no social life. Like everything you do is music. Like I didn't, I had little chicks on the side that I would mess with, but outside of that, I had no girlfriend because they would take that. That means like having taking time away from my music to pursue a girlfriend. And I was like, no. I was like, I'll sleep with you, but you're not my girl. Like you know what I mean? So, you know, um, it takes a lot of giving a lot of things up. Like my social life, like I didn't, you know, if you weren't a musician, you weren't in my social circle. So, um, so yeah. But let me get out of here, man. You know, what makes the amount of time? Oh, the amount of time. If a guitarist is better than me, then he's just spent more time on the instrument than I have. If a drummer is better than me, then he's just spent more time on the instrument than I have. You know what I mean? That's all it is, man. You know what I mean? It's not they like for instance, like look at guys like Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix, the reason why he got so good is because he slept when he got drafted and he got drafted into the US Army, like his bunk like oh man, Billy Cox. He met Jimmy in the army. Billy Cox said, "Hey bro, Jimmy used to sleep with his guitar." Jimmy's younger brother said Jimmy used to sleep with his guitar. He always had his guitar. Like his family attested to like Jimmy was always playing guitar. Like he just was. He was always playing guitar. Guys who were in Little Richard's band with Jimmy, they said he was always playing. He was always playing guitar. It didn't matter. Um, Even when he was living in New York in Greenwich Village, they said he used to carry his guitar in like a duffel bag, one of those army duffel bags, and he always had his guitar with him. You know what I mean? Like, and so my point is, it's the amount of time that you put in to your on your instrument. It's not like it's and if you play enough, it becomes natural. Like I've heard people say, Mark, man, it just was natural to you. It was not natural to me. I put an insane amount of time in it. That's why I put so much time that it became natural. It became effortless. If that's why you don't see me grimacing like because it just I kept playing and I kept practicing until it's nothing. It's literally like just vomiting stuff out. You know what I mean? So if I do grimace like that, it's not because it's physically difficult to play. It's because if I'm playing something fast, it's difficult controlling it. Because I can play fast. There's a difference between fast and just all over the place and playing fast but playing controlled. That's when it gets difficult because speed is easy to obtain. Can you obtain control? They got whole books on stick control. This is one of the most famous ones, stick control. They got books written on how to control the rebound, how to control the sticks, and you know what I mean. How you actually, so it's about the time, man. It's about the amount of time that you put into your instrument. So it's pretty simple, man. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's like there's one thing I learned. Being the crappiest guy on a gig is a blessing. It's humbling, but it's a blessing because it forces you to play better. I've been multiple times. I've been the crappiest guy on the gig, and it was humbling. It was humbling. Because you know, not for nothing, but the guys I would play with, they'd tell you about yourself. They'd be like, "You suck, bro. Like you're horrible. Like get it together. Like learn how to groove. Learn how to do this. Come on, bro. Work it out." Um, and it's just night after night getting humiliated eventually it forces you to get better. Like it's either sink or swim. Either you're gonna get better or they just gonna get tired of you and hire somebody else. So you can either work at it and get better, or you could just be like, whatever, man, and you're gonna quit, or they're gonna fire you. So, you know, um, but yeah, surround yourself with dudes that play better than you until you play at their level, and then go to another group of musicians that are better than you. So until there's just no more guys who are better than you, and another thing too, don't compare yourself to local guys. Compare yourself to the best of the best. Compare yourself to the musician's musician. Like I've never compared myself to local guys. I've always compared myself to the legends, to the greats. Not to say I'm one of the greats, but if you aim for the stars, you're gonna at least hit the moon. You know what I mean? If you aim for the next galaxy, you're gonna at least hit the solar system. You know what I mean? So, but that's for me. I think that's what it was for me. Like I always compare. I always looked at the greats as they're no different than me. They eat, they sleep, they need to practice, they crap, they cry, they feel pain. They're humans. They're just other humans. They just put in a lot of time. If I put in as much time as them, I will get to their level. I've never looked at people who as like superhuman or they're innately born. I don't believe in that. Either you put in the time or you don't. That's the difference. Either you put in the time or you don't. If you don't put in the time, then you ain't gonna get there. If you put in the time, you're gonna get there. The more you do it, the better you get. You know. But yeah, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, dude. I was by the time I was 4 years into playing, I was I was I was I was I was better than guys who have been playing for 10 years. And I'm self-taught. Dude swore, "Oh man, those I had a dude. Oh man, those lessons really paid off." I was like, "I never took lessons, bro. We 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 couldn't afford lessons, man. I learned on my own." He kind of looked at me like, "Whoa." And I was like 4 years into playing, man. You know. I but I just put in ungodly amounts of time. I was practicing 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. On Saturday, 6 to 7. Sunday, we didn't go to church, so it was 6 to 7. You know what I mean? But I was like every day. I was practicing every day. Even now, I practice every day. And I've been slacking off, dude. Like if I really practiced the way I used to practice, it would be insane, bro. Right now I'm just maintaining my skill set. I'm not really progressing and I'm not regressing. I'm just maintaining my skill set. But if I really practice the way I used to, I'll get back to those hardcore practices. But right now I'm just kind of like doing a lot of just kind of enjoying playing, and like um just like embedding what I already know, embedding it into my style, and then I'll get to a point where I'll be like, well, I need to learn new stuff. So then I just start putting in more hours and more hours and more hours a day. Usually I'm practicing consistently. Once I go through those phases, 2 to 3 hours a day, every day, um, and I'll spend usually 2 hours learning new stuff. So it's just like building on your vocabulary. I did not develop another vocabulary, and I just, I've expanded, and I'll do that for like maybe a year, 2 years, and my vocabulary will have grown, and then I'll just kind of chill out and do what I'm doing now, just kind of maintaining, until I get kind of restless again, and then I'll just decide to do, it's a process, man. It's 2 a.m. All right, bro, take it easy, man. Yeah, I'm about to take it down too. It's 8:01. I got to get up early.